Fourth and final hour in-game live Pro Football Game Day. Our thanks to James Salinas, all of our guests for that matter. We had Wes Reynolds on earlier as well as Cam Stewart. And damn it, Brady, we got the overtime. We just didn't get the cover. The we being me and the me being Cal, I guess. 98-94. Did not cover the 5.5. One more bucket. Could have middled with you.
Yeah, this was quite an affair. And the Cal Bears, all of a sudden, red hot. They beat the two Florida schools out of the ACC, a win over Florida State the other night, and now over Miami. Miami goes 0 for 2 in the Bay Area, losing to Stanford earlier this week, and now Cal. And the Bears, all of a sudden, have won 3 in a row. And let's not get too excited. We talked about this. First of all, they gave up 94 points to the Miami Hurricanes, who we know are not a very good basketball team. That says something about that Cal defense. The Cal defense is absolutely a liability. So I wouldn't necessarily go run to the window with the Cal Bears in their next affair just because you think they're on a little bit of a run here. They're not a very good team. We know Miami has real struggles, but they showed up tonight.
So I want to pick up some of what we were talking about with James, especially there at the end with the live betting. It's a conversation, as I mentioned, we don't typically have unless there's a game that we're specifically looking for live betting opportunities on in the moment. These games, they haven't kicked off. I think the Bills and Chiefs game is an excellent example. James is talking about, depending on how it's playing out early, looking for a plus money opportunity on either money line, can kick back, enjoy the game, know he's going to profit, and effectively just arbitrage the situation, which is an interesting approach. It's not one I subscribe to personally, only because I'm really bad about knowing that I'm lighting money on fire. But that's one side of it. The other side of it is, the optimistic. It's like glass half full, glass half empty, right? The glass half empty is I'm lighting money on fire. The glass half full is I'm locking in profit. I'm guaranteeing profit. To that end, something we talked about on my radio show during the week, and I don't know if these numbers are still available, but I thought it was a interesting way, not as secure maybe as what James was talking about, but an interesting way to approach the game pregame. If you believe that this game is a coin flip, as so many people do, I don't know who's going to win, but it's going to be close. On DraftKings, there was an opportunity a couple days ago to invest in both teams to win by between 1 and 6 points at plus 340 on each side. Now, if you put...
Sounds like a pretty good bet.
Even if you split a half unit on each one, like split a unit, put a half unit on each one, you are locking in at that point in time 1.2 units of profit. As long as the game is decided within a touchdown. If it is decided by 7 points or more, you lose both sides. So again, you don't get that kick up your feet, relax, I have plus money on each money line situation in the live betting market, if that situation can be created, as James was alluding to. But it's a pregame way to approach the game. The question really becomes, how sure are you, and this is the royal you, not just you, Brady Kannon, how sure are you that this is going to be a close game?
I think it'll be close, and I don't think that's an awful bet, but I do prefer James's approach because his approach, first of all, what we're talking about here is in somewhat it's the same thing. We feel that the game is going to be close, right? But the pre-kickoff bet that you're talking about that DraftKings is offering is not ironclad. You can lose that bet. If you transfer that thinking that this game is going to be close, no matter who wins, again, DraftKings is trying to sell you that bet, and we agree with that. But again, it's not foolproof. If at the same time, if you think that has a great chance to unfold, which I believe it does, you go into that game, and James said it, the Bills go down and score, and then, the Chiefs counter with a field goal, and pretty soon it's 10-3, and you've got, Buffalo or Kansas City rather at plus 150 to win the game or something. And then Kansas City comes back and now they're ahead by 3 or something. You're going to get Buffalo at plus 125. I truly believe there are going to be both of those scenarios that surface. And then your situation is ironclad. There, you've got plus 130 or whatever on each side. You can't lose. So that's the difference between those two bets. Even though I see the scenario, playing out where both bets would make sense, one still leaves a door open that you could lose, and one does not.
And obviously you're investing equally on either side. So you're not, it's not entirely an arbitrage situation. It's more of an arbitrage mindset kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. No, and it's a great way to play a game that sets up like this as well. These opportunities don't exist in every single game, but they do here. No. And I think it's a good way to play it, good way to approach it.
No, it makes a lot of sense. All right, let's we haven't spent as much time talking about props with this game, other than, I guess, the anytime touchdown market with Allen, Kelsey, and what other guys deserve our respect. But Chiefs are woeful against the tight end position. We saw Dawson Knox when Kincaid was not available when they matched up earlier in the season, and he didn't have a crazy game or anything. I mean, maybe by Dawson Knox standards he did, finished with around 40 yards. There are a lot of people that want to invest in Dalton Kincaid this week for that very same reason. If you are looking at props on the Bills side, is that one of the first places you're going?
Gosh, the tough thing I think about betting Buffalo in the proposition market, and this is true. I'm trying to remember. Oh, it was the Detroit Lions. We were talking about this last week. If you're going to pick out one of those offensive weapons to key in on for the Detroit Lions in the prop market, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Williamson, who do you choose? The ball typically gets spread out to a lot of those guys. Sometimes one guy might go off and exceed his number by a lot, but how do you pick who that's going to be? And I think it's similar. You've kind of alluded to it, Adam. The Bills have a prolific offense. They're one of, if not the best offenses in football, and it's because they have a lot of options. So how do you kind of hone in on one guy and say, that's where I'm going to load up with my money? Kincaid, by the way, one of the top 5 most popular bets as far as the prop market is concerned at BetMGM. He is the 5th most popular at over 31.5 receiving yards at minus 115. But then you've got James Cook, you've got Ray Davis, you've got Keon Coleman, you've got Shakir. I mean, there's so many different directions they can go offensively that I think it's hard to lock in and just say, here's my guy that I think's going to have a big day. I went with Kenneth Gainwell, in the other matchup, right? Who were just asking him to get 9 yards rushing to go over his number. That's not a huge day. I think it's a very realistic expectation that he's going to get to tote the rock a few times, and he's going to gain a few yards, and he's going to get there. Picking out which guy is going to go huge with Buffalo is hard because they have so many options, in my opinion.
We alluded to this earlier with Travis Kelce being at almost 70 yards, 68.5 in terms of his receiving prop, which is a substantial jump. Now, he had a great divisional round. He went for over 100 yards, whatever it was. But 50, that was the line. It was 49.5. 50 was the receiving yardage going into that game. That was the prop. So we have jumped by almost 20 yards. I want your perspective on the other side as to whether Kelce is a guy that you want to continue to ride that. You want to invest in the over. I'm not saying you got to go under, but do you like the over? Do you expect another monster performance out of Kelce with his girlfriend, maybe future bride, up in the suites watching?
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, two teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 7 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today. And stay with us for in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back here with Brady. So, as I mentioned, we saw Travis Kelce go 7 for 8 for 117 last round against the Texans. We have seen him eclipse 69, 70 yards this season. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. That's it. 6 times. I hesitated on one because he got to 68. He was right there. 7 of 13 against the Raiders. You could chalk this up to multiple things, though. You know, he picked up after Rashee Rice, went down. You know, he became a little bit more involved, but largely over the course of the regular season, we saw it to some degree last year, more so this year. Guy just kind of gets bubble wrapped, saves himself for the playoffs. He's getting up there in age, football-wise. The ripe old age of 35 here, Brady. Makes me feel very old. Still 70, 68 and a half. It's a big number. The question is he going to be the focal point that he was last week? Is there any part of you that's tempted to go under on that, or is it just stay away?
It's definitely under or pass for me, Adam. And you talk about the focal point. I think he's the focal point of the bettors. I mean, you know, last week, there was more distractions, so to speak, because you had more games. Now, again, we hone in on only 2 contests. We know, Taylor Swift's going to be there in the stands, and it's Kelce, and it's the Chiefs, and they're at home, and it's the age-old matchup with the Bills. And, people are honed in on this matchup. Travis Kelce over receiving yards is the 3rd most popular prop at BetMGM as far as ticket count, over 68.5 yards. And like you talked about, it's such a jump from where it was last week. It's kind of like the Cal Bears and the Miami Hurricanes we talked about. That line has gotten so out of hand that, you could only go the other way. And we also talked about, doing an anytime touchdown parlay or whatever. And I think Josh Allen is a great bet on the yes. I would say Saquon Barkley is probably a pretty darn good bet on the yes. I'm not so sure about Kelce. He's the one. It seems like in years past, he was automatic. I don't know if he's to that level yet at this stage in his career, this season. You talked about how many times he's gone over that yardage total this year. It's well into the minority. So, yeah, no, I would absolutely be playing under here. Here's the question that could throw a wrench into your plans. Taylor Rapp for the Buffalo Bills. If he's ruled out of this game, that could be big, and that could free up the middle of the field for Travis Kelce. It's that safety. We see it, year in and year out in the division games with the Chargers. I'm losing his name now. James for the Chargers. Derwin James.
Derwin James.
Derwin James. Yes, out of Florida State. Yeah. Fantastic player. And it's always the matchup with he and Kelce, right? And it's gone both ways. Sometimes James wins, sometimes Kelce wins. But Taylor Rapp, I think, is probably a guy that's going to, take a lot of that responsibility in this contest. We'll see how it plays out defensively for Buffalo. But if he's not in the game, maybe your bet hinges on his status. That could be part of it. If you're looking at matchups. And that's probably what you want to do. And if Rapp is not going to play, it's not only big for a Travis Kelce prop. I think it's big for this ball game for Buffalo and their defense.
Let me ask you this. We could apply it to the other game as well, but we'll start with this one. We keep talking about who do we want to invest in? What props do we like? For Barkley, do you go over? You under? You just said with Kelce, it's either an under or stay away, all of this stuff. Who is just nowhere near your card? What is a player that you are just completely fading? You look at their lines, or you look at their inconsistency, or you look at their involvement. You want nothing to do with them. There are a couple that come to mind for me, but if I can start, or if you have any that come to mind immediately for you, by all means.
Well, I definitely want to hear your answer, and you get involved in the prop markets more than I do. I think Patrick Mahomes is a total stay away for me. I don't know what's going to happen there. It might be yes on over half an interception. It could be yes on over 1.5 touchdown passes. I just don't quite know what I'm going to get out of Mahomes. So he's certainly a stay away. Jalen Hurts is a stay away for me because there's health issues there. I think I kind of know what might happen, but I'm not so sure how well he's going to be able to run the ball. We talked about it earlier in the program. Is he going to be able to even execute the tush-push with a bad knee? Is he going to score a touchdown? So I have a lot of question marks about him. James brought up some great points about Jaden Daniels and his confidence and his poise. He's at 221.5 passing yards. I'd probably tend to go over there because they could be trailing in the game as well. But I don't necessarily want to bank on anything with him as far as rushing the ball. So I guess the quarterbacks are probably some of the largest questions for me, except for Josh Allen. I feel very comfortable betting him to score an anytime touchdown. I would say the one I'm most in the dark about is Mahomes. I'm just not sure quite what to expect out of him.
Well, I'll tell you, Jalen Hurts is definitely on my list. That is a guy that, with the injury concerns and honestly just the way he's been throwing the ball, I mean, it should surprise nobody if he has 50 rushing yards and 140 passing yards. That should surprise no one. Nor should it necessarily, if this game really gets going, shock anyone if he has 275 passing and 20 rushing yards. I don't know what we're going to get from him, even if he does play the entire game. I don't want anything to do with him. I don't even want to water him down to like 150 passing plus rushing, throw him in a builder. I don't want anything to do with him. The other two that I emphatically want nothing to do with are on the Chiefs. They share the backfield. Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco. Part of this is Andy Reid, though, and the way that he deploys these guys. I think Hunt is going to get more of the carries, more of the usage, more of the red zone all of that. But I'm not certain of it. If Isaiah Pacheco is suddenly, in the blink of an eye, become Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I don't want anything to do with either of these guys because I don't know how Reid's going to put them out there.
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, two teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 7 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today. And stay with us for in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're both here. Don't worry. We're here. Hey, we're back. All right. Let's talk to you. This is what it's late night on a Saturday. All right. So we're just talking about guys that we absolutely hate and can't stand, Brady. No, I'm just kidding. People that we don't want to invest in this weekend. And I mentioned the backfield there for Kansas City due to the unpredictability of Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco, and maybe more so Andy Reid. Especially, and I didn't mention this part before, if I am of the belief, as you are and so many out there are, that the Bills are going to win this game, it's not like I'm looking at it the way I might look at the Eagles with Gainwell, as you brought up, or Barkley. Like, are they going to be bleeding clock in the fourth, all of that? I'm not so sure the Chiefs have the lead in the fourth quarter of this game. I'm not. I mean, probably they will, or it'll be tied, or it'll be close, within 3, whatever it is. But I don't think it's going to be clock-killing mode for Kansas City. So that in mind, I think Mahomes is going to stick to his game plan. They'll run some, so will he. But I don't think that offense goes into the let's just waste away time and get ourselves back into the Super Bowl. People are going to be drawn to these low numbers. I mean, you give both these guys rushing props below. I mean, Hunt is 35.5, Pacheco's 29.5. These numbers are jokes. And yet I still don't want him, Brady. I don't trust him.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a good point there because I'm just not. I mean, we have seen Kansas City's offense be relatively anemic to what we're used to really all season long. And it was especially bad the last time we saw them last week against a very good defense in the Houston Texans. Now, the defensive unit for Buffalo is probably not as good, not necessarily as much of a pass rush. You know, they don't have Will Anderson out there on the edge. The secondary is very solid for Buffalo, but maybe you've got Taylor Rapp banged up. So, you know, it was probably a better defense that Kansas City faced last week. And now you have something that they may be able to attack or have more more success against this week. But what does that mean? Does that mean they do it on the ground? Does that mean they throw it to Hopkins? You've got Worthy and you've got Hollywood Brown possibly back in the fray now, Kelsey. So I just don't really know where it's going to come from here. I will tell you, though, a guy I have a great deal of respect for and comes on with Gabe and Cam on Sports Rage right here on SportsGrid every Wednesday night, and that's our friend Paul Bovey. One of the bets he threw out very early in the week. Paul's a professional bettor, done very, very well over the years for himself, made it all the way to the second to last week in Circus Survivor this year. So the guy knows what he's doing. He bet over rushing yards on Kareem Hunt when it was at 31.5. Now it's at 35.5. Okay, so again, we've talked about it all night long. Line movement like that, you've lost the value. That ship has sailed. You're late to the party. So, with the unknown and with the missed boat on the line movement there, it's not a bet I want to go make now. If I could get 31.5, now maybe so, but you can't. And so, it's, to your point, it's another case of stay away from me on those guys as well. I do, on the other side, Adam, I liked it last week. James Cook over 54.5 rushing yards. I'd probably take that one over again. I think this Bills rushing attack is really kind of a under the radar part of their attack a little bit. Everybody's used to Allen throwing it all over the yard, which he can do. But we saw them last week really establish the run pretty well against Baltimore, and I think they might try to do that again.
He's another guy that I have trouble trusting, not because of his ability, but because of usage. Here in the playoffs, 17 for 67, 23 for 120. Great. You were saving him, use him, perfect. In that case, I agree with everything you just said. But toward the end of the regular season, I'll sort of throw out the 10 for 28 against the Patriots because that game didn't mean anything. 15 for 53 against the Jets, 11, now granted he had 100, but only 11 carries. In that other game against the Patriots, 14 for, again, 105, but only 14 carries against the Lions, 6, 14, 9 for 20 against the Chiefs when they met earlier this year. I mean, generally, this guy is held below 15 carries. Maybe that was just preserving him for the here and now. And if it was, terrific. Again, we're in agreement. I just don't know. I don't know if it's going to be more of a timeshare.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And if you don't know, hey, you don't have to bet it. That's what we always say, right? They have to hang the number. We pick what we want to bet, and we can stay away from those that we don't know about.
You don't have to bet everything? Come on. We'll be back.
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, two teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 7 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today. And stay with us for in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Walked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Brady, we had James Salinas, good friend of yours, on earlier. He is a professional bettor and obviously a very successful one. You know, won the Super Contest. He's, you know, often been in the top 2 or 3. He's done just fine for himself here in the business. There are others like him. I was talking to another professional handicapper there, professional bettor out in Vegas the other day, Scott Pritchard, who I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Scott about Super Bowl odds, which right now have Philadelphia plus 175, the favorite, Kansas City plus 210, Buffalo plus 250, and then your value, if you believe in the Commanders, the value is there at plus 850. These are FanDuel odds. FanDuel also has hypothetical matchups posted, where if the Bills were to win and face either the Commanders, well, let me say that a different way. The AFC regardless, you are looking at a 4.5 point favorite, Bills or Chiefs, against the Commanders. Eagles on the other side, it's a 1.5 point spread, where again, the AFC is the favorite. So I said to Scott, so if either way the AFC is the favorite, why is Philadelphia the Super Bowl favorite right now? And he said, that's not surprising. The reason for that is simply they have the best chance to get there. Whereas the AFC game is a pick'em right now, basically. You know, Philadelphia is a decent size favorite against Washington. So the expectation is the Eagles will be there. And then obviously, come the Super Bowl, if it's the Eagles against one of those two teams, then it'll flip. And then your money line favorite, your betting favorite, all of that, your spread, it suddenly becomes the AFC again. So makes sense. I understand. How, though, would you approach Super Bowl betting right now entering the semifinal round?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a pretty cool little phenomenon that you have right here in front of you, and an opportunity, in my opinion. And Scott's exactly right, because we think it's an easier path for the Eagles just to get there. So obviously you have to get there before you're going to win it. So if we're looking that they are more of a guarantee, if you will, to get there, then certainly it's understandable that they're the favorite. But again, this now gives us opportunity, because we have a virtual pick'em game between Kansas City and Buffalo, and they're both better than 2-1 to win the Super Bowl. Kansas City, like you said, plus 210. You might even be able to find a better number than that. Buffalo plus 250 at FanDuel. So bet them both, you know, and you got to figure out all the math here and everything. But if it is indeed Philadelphia that emerges victorious on Sunday and goes to the Super Bowl, then you're going to be able to get them at the neighborhood of, say, plus 105, maybe even plus 110, probably at the worst even money. And then you've got, it's like James Salinas talked about in game, you've got a plus price on both sides of the Super Bowl matchup, whether it's the Bills or the Chiefs and the Eagles. And if Washington happens to come through, then you're going to get, I mean, if you look, then you're going to get, you're going to have almost 2-1 on both sides in that case. You know, Washington, I'm showing FanDuel right now, a little under 2-1, plus 185, plus 195 if they're in the Super Bowl as a 4.5 point dog or something like that. So yeah, you play both Kansas City and Buffalo to win the Super Bowl at better than 2-1. You're going to have a good situation where you'll have plus money on both sides if Philadelphia wins, but you'll have a great situation if Washington wins. Then you've got better or around or better than 2-1 on both sides of the matchup, which is a fantastic situation. And like James said, then you just sit back and enjoy the game and make a profit with whatever happens.
Now, as someone that doesn't do this, I've never really approached this because I mean, technically, it's the futures market. I don't spend a lot of time in the futures market. I talk about it, but I don't do a lot of betting in it myself. I'm very upfront about that. Just don't have the patience for it, basically. But this is a short runway. Obviously, this isn't waiting out a regular season for a prop bet to cash or something like that. How do you go about figuring out the math with all of this to make it work in best in your favor, other than obviously shopping around to make sure you get the best number?
Well, you probably just want to start with what's the number that you're comfortable risking, or what's the number that you're trying to win, and then you just go from there. The likely scenario is that you're going to obviously get Buffalo or Kansas City into the Super Bowl, and likely that they will face Philadelphia. And if all that, obviously the AFC has to play out. If Philadelphia plays out, you're going to have one team in hand that is 2-1, and basically one team that's even money. So, how do you monetize with that situation? And there's a lot of different things that you can do, but ideally you would want to get Philadelphia at better than even money. Okay. Then it's going to translate into a profit for you either way. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense.
And
something to consider for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like betting, two dogs. If you bet, you're playing the UFC, and there's 2 fights left on the card, and you're going to bet both dogs at plus 200, and if one of them wins, you get a profit. So it's kind of the same thing here. You're not getting as juicy as a price with Philadelphia. You'd really want to root for Washington. Then you're really sitting pretty. But I think you could set yourself up pretty well to turn a profit if you just bet Kansas City or Buffalo to win the Super Bowl, both better than 2-1, and it doesn't really matter what happens. I shouldn't say it doesn't really matter. There's always the risk of injury or something happening like that, and then Philadelphia all of a sudden becomes the favorite in the Super Bowl or something, and then you're kind of up against it. But if things play out the way we think they will, you're in a good situation.
And where was I going to go with that?
You could also, Adam, go like exact result. Okay. And possibly even get bigger numbers like Kansas City to beat Philadelphia. The exact result might be plus 350, and Buffalo to beat Philadelphia might be 4-1. You could go that way as well. And then you've got an even bigger, position. Obviously in that case, you have to bet the other side, being the Eagles. And then you just have to hope that they get there, because, when you're betting the exact result, it's not either or on the NFC side. But again, I think the odds are telling us that Philadelphia is the side that we expect to win. They're the favorite to win the Super Bowl because of reasons we just talked about. So you could go the exact result market as well.
Hamster back on the wheel. I remember what I was going to ask you, Brady. So Washington at plus 850. Obviously, there's, as I said before, extreme value in that number. And people like to throw around this term in sports all the time. Team of destiny, all that stuff. Do you think, independent of trying to set yourself up in all the ways we've been talking about for the last 6-7 minutes, could you justify investing in Washington right now, especially if you're someone who thinks that, I think they could beat the Eagles this weekend. What chances do you give them? I know they wouldn't be favorites. We just said it. They'd be 4.5-point dogs. What chances do you give the Eagles against the AFC representative to win this thing to where you're saying plus 850 looks pretty good?
I think it is a good price. And Adam, when we were looking at this last weekend, it was 7-1. It was plus 700.
Right.
Okay. So the number has drifted. You're getting even a better price at this point. It makes sense. I mean, they are a long shot for sure, but I do have belief. We talked about it earlier. I would be less surprised by a Washington win than I would by a Philadelphia blowout. We'll talk about this on the other side, but I think there's another way you could approach this that might be even a better number than plus 850.
More than 3.5 hours down. We're still coming up with new ways to talk about these two games. Are you kidding me? We're going to do it. We got just a little more time with you here on In-Game Live Pro Football Game Day. Go nowhere. Making you money.
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, two teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 7 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today. And stay with us for In-Game Live Game Day, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Brady here has broken out the calculator. He's done the math, and now it is time to put on a presentation. What do you have for us? How do we make some loot tomorrow?
Well, I went to my trusty parlay calculator to figure out, if one bet was going to be better than the other. And it actually was last week, but now it's not. We were talking about last week, the number on Washington to win the Super Bowl was 7-1. And I wondered, I said, well, what if you just, had a running parlay, if you will, here? They're 195 on the money line, to win on Sunday against the Eagles. And we know that if they make it to the Super Bowl, we've seen the hypothetical matchups. They're basically 195. If they are to make the Super Bowl, that's going to roughly be the money line on them again. Well, if you go 195 and 195 in a two-team parlay, it's plus 770. So it's better than 7-1, but it's not as good as plus 850. So at this point, where this number has drifted, you're probably, if you have belief in Washington, you're better off taking the plus 850 rather than just playing the money line this week and rolling it over into the money line next week.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it makes sense.
It's something you have to think about. Usually, it'll pay you better if you just continue to roll over. Usually, you're paying a premium in the futures market, right? You usually don't get quite as good a number as if you were just to let that bet ride, if you will. But in this case, the plus 850 looks pretty good.
There's no sure thing across the board, especially when it comes to, who's going to be the best player in a game that we don't even know the matchups. That said, we have a market for Super Bowl MVP. It will not surprise anyone that Patrick Mahomes is the favorite. narrowly against Josh Allen. Just figuring, okay. I mean, let's the odds tell you the story, Brady. All right, so the books think the AFC is going to win. So it's either the Chiefs or it's the Bills. And from there, generally, not always, but generally the MVP is the quarterback. So it's Mahomes or Allen. Chiefs are the narrow favorite. They've been there before. He's been a Super Bowl MVP before, all that. So Mahomes plus 250, and then you have Allen plus 260. Then Saquon at plus 450. Hurts at plus 550. And to give us a top five, Jaden Daniels plus 850. At that point in time, I mean, again, we're just comparing odds. You want to put 850 on Jaden Daniels to win Super Bowl MVP, or you want to put 850 on the Commanders to win the Super Bowl? One doesn't happen without the other, so I'd rather invest in the Commanders to win the Super Bowl. So that to me is just kind of a dumb option. But among those other four, who would you like?
Well, I think the interesting story there is Jaden Daniels at plus 850. If Washington wins the Super Bowl, I don't think there's any chance that he's not the MVP. But you do leave yourself to, that he's not. Who knows who could be the MVP? So I'm with you. I would take the plus 850 for Washington to win the Super Bowl and not go the MVP route. Now with the other guys, I think it's kind of interesting that Saquon is a shorter price than Jalen Hurts. That might be the way to go. Philadelphia is the favorite to win the Super Bowl because we figure they have an easier path to get there, right? It's a toss-up whether it's going to be KC or Buffalo, but obviously Philadelphia is a good-sized favorite against Washington to advance. So maybe Jalen Hurts is the value play there. The problem is we don't know if his knee gets better or worse in Sunday's contest. Who knows? Maybe he gets knocked out of the darn game, and Kenny Pickett plays the Super Bowl. So that's the risk there. I wouldn't want to play Barkley though, and I wouldn't want to play Mahomes or Allen. I guess if I had to play either one, I'd probably take Allen because I believe that they will win on Sunday. But that one, again, it's a toss-up. So I don't think that's a great bet to make. I think probably the best bet to make there, Adam, is Jalen Hurts at I believe you said 5-1 plus 500?
550.
Even better. And oddly enough, the second choice, the Barkley at plus 450, yep. I think you said. And it's typically a quarterback that wins it. Just going off of that and the fact that Philadelphia is the favorite to win the Super Bowl because they are more likely to get there it's a toss-up between which AFC team gets there. So I think Hurts would be the play in that market. But I don't think I'm not going to bet that market. I kind of like those Super Bowl, odds to win the Super Bowl and set yourself up for a position. I think when you're betting the futures market, at least myself, I always try to set myself up where I'm in a position where I'll have a chance to monetize. If this happens, it's like I have college basketball futures. If I can get these teams into the Elite Eight, the Final Four, what have you, I'm going to have chances to monetize. I don't know if betting the MVP market is going to give me that opportunity more so than betting a Super Bowl winner market would.
You could invest in A.J. Brown at 33-1. Does that interest you at all?
Nah, it really – I told you I'm already going under on his receiving yards total on Sunday.
Doesn't – remember, this isn't like the, Conn Smythe. Like that's it's not the whole playoff performance. That's one game.
You know who – hey, here's one for you. I'm trying to think of the what's the defensive stud on the defensive line for Philadelphia? Justin Watkins or something like that? Jalen Carter. How about play that guy for Super Bowl MVP? You're going to get what, 200-1, 150-1? That might be a good play there.
100-1. I mean, maybe better elsewhere. I'm looking at FanDuel, but 100-1 for Jalen Carter.
I think that's the play I would make if I was going to dive into that market. I'd take a long shot like that with a team that's expected to be in the game.
Chris Jones, 110-1.
Yeah. I like Carter. He is a game wrecker. He has the ability to win MVP.
Interesting call. I like that. Different. Outside the box.
We saw
This
Von Miller
boring
do it, right?
quarterback talk. True. It has happened before. We'll be back.
It's Championship Sunday. Can rookie sensation Jaden Daniels clip the Eagles' wings on his way to Super Bowl history? Then, two teams that know each other all too well face off in the AFC in the Bills and Chiefs. SportsGrid has you covered all day Sunday. Start at 7 a.m. with FST, followed by Pro Football Today. And stay with us for in-game live game day. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Okay, Brady, it's about that time. Final segment of the show. That means favorite plays for Sunday. Where are we going to make the money? That's what the people out there listening and watching want to know. Where do they invest? They want to take the thinking out of it and just blindly tail us and all the way to the bank, all the way to the window. What do you have, Brady?
Well, I'll pat myself on the back a little bit. I did pretty well last week in that Baltimore-Buffalo game. I had James Cook over his rushing total. I had Josh Allen anytime touchdown. I had, luckily, Derrick Henry under his rushing yard total, which was odd how it got there. He was so successful in the second half when he started to wear down that defense. Then all of a sudden they didn't go to him in the last drive or two. But he stayed pretty well under the 96.5. I think he had 80 yards or something like that. And I thought there was one more, but it was 3 or 4 that we hit on that game. I'm going to have to go back after the show. And, I like the Kenneth Gainwell over 8.5 yards rushing. That number on A.J. Brown has gotten so high. I think I want to go under on him. Austin Eckler over makes some sense, but that number has gotten a little bit out of hand. Zach Ertz. I think the Gainwell and the A.J. Brown and the Josh Allen anytime touchdown, those might be my 3 favorite as far as the prop market right now. But the bets that I currently have in pocket, and I made them relatively early in the week, I made them when the Buffalo Bills got to 2-point underdogs in their game against Kansas City. And I most importantly wanted to get them to the other side of a touchdown. And when it got to 2, I could actually get through the key number of 8 as well. So I've got Buffalo on a 6.5-point teaser up to plus 8.5. And I went ahead and did a 7-point teaser up to 9 as well. Not a whole lot of difference between 9 and 8.5, but what the heck.
Sure.
And then the other leg rather than taking Philadelphia down to basically a pick 'em or so, I took Washington up to plus 12.5 and then also plus 13. 13's somewhat key. 12.5 is not, but 7, 8, 10, 11. So I'm to the other side of all those numbers. So that's the teaser I have in pocket, both a 6.5 and a 7 point on Washington and Buffalo. And it kills me to know that you and I both are rooting for those sides. That's the Super Bowl we want to see. The public is all over those sides. But when you bring the teaser element into it, I think tweaking those numbers all the way to 8.5 and 12.5, I just don't see it happening. And we've talked about it a couple of times. I think there's a better chance that Washington wins the game outright than there is of them getting blown out by double digits. And we've also talked about the fact that we feel Kansas City and Buffalo is going to be a very closely contested affair and probably decided by a field goal or less. So getting 8.5, I feel very comfortable with both legs of that teaser.
Listen, what's the math? 22 hours from now, I'm sitting here wrapping up in-game live pro football game day with Scott and Joe talking about, here we go, Chiefs, Eagles, Super. I'm going to throw something. I'm going to be so.
I thought you were going to say you're going to throw up. Would you do that too?
I'm in my mouth. I don't want to make a mess. I do not. I would not be excited to talk about that game for 2 weeks. I would not be excited to watch that game. I would just give us, please. Like the Eagles, I can stomach. I want the Commanders, but I can stomach the Eagles. We've done the Chiefs thing. I'm good. And I realize, if you're watching and you see the Boston backdrop behind me, hypocrite, I know. I know how people felt about the Patriots for 2 decades. Believe me, I understand. I'm good with the Chiefs. I'm not saying dead and buried. You're done, Mahomes. You can't win anymore. They'll be back. Even if they don't get there this year, they'll be back. Let's take a year off. Give us some new blood. I want the Bills.
What's your best
Bills
bet?
money line. Bills money line. I'm on the Bills money line. I firmly believe it. I also believe in the Bills team total over 23.5. Getting them inside that number
that's even a better
of 24.
Bet.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think there's going to be points in that game, but I especially expect it from the Bills side. So I don't necessarily want to go to the team, the overall full game over, but the team total over for the Bills I like a lot. I mentioned that trend earlier with the Commanders and Eagles. I played the over 13.5 points in the fourth quarter. If you have fourth quarter markets available to you, over 13.5. I think we get scoring from those two teams late in that game on the way to deciding what, as you mentioned, is probably a closer game than some out there are giving it credit for. Among other things, I'm sure I'll be tweeting away. Our thanks to all of our guests, to Tommy, to Greg, everybody behind the scenes. For Brady, I'm Adam. We'll catch you again tomorrow, right here on the grid. Sweat football, and hoping to make some money along the way. Good night.
Go Bills!